So before we get to today's video, I just wanted to quickly ask for any of you watching if you could just hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to get as many followers as possible just so that I can continue to make more videos and hopefully make a career out of this someday. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll get to the show. Alright, hello everyone and welcome to this episode of the Noble Crumb. My name is Jason. So today we're actually going to have a lot of fun. We're going to get a little bit fancy and a little bit tricky, and we're probably going to make a huge mess in the process. So today I'm going to show you how to make your very own molded chocolates. So it's nothing to be afraid of. We're going to temper our chocolate. We're going to make 3 different fillings for them, and obviously get as creative as you want to make your own fillings. Look it up on Google because obviously the sky's the limit when it comes to this. The big piece of advice I will give you is just to be prepared and have all your tools and essentials kind of laid out and ready to go, because once you start working with the tempered chocolate, you kind of have to have everything there and good to go. So here's the ingredients that you're going to need to make the fillings and the instructions on how we're going to temper our chocolate. And I'm also going to give you a list of kind of the essential tools that you'll need. So here's everything that you're going to need to prepare yourself for making these molded chocolates. And remember, these are fun, so don't get scared off. So for our molded chocolates, here's what we're going to need for the chocolate portion. 2 pounds of good quality chocolate. Now to temper the chocolate, it's going to depend on what type of chocolate you use. So for dark and semi-sweet chocolate, we're going to heat it until it hits 115 degrees Fahrenheit, but no hotter than 120 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to stir and cool it until it hits 84 degrees Fahrenheit. And then we're going to reheat it in 5 to 10 second bursts until it hits 89 to 91 degrees Fahrenheit. Now for milk and white chocolate, we're going to basically heat it until it hits 110 degrees Fahrenheit, but no hotter than 115 degrees Fahrenheit. We will stir and cool it until it hits that 84 degrees Fahrenheit again. And then we'll reheat in 5 to 10 second bursts until it hits 89 to 91 degrees Fahrenheit. Now for my peanut butter filled chocolates, here's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use 3/4 of a cup of peanut butter, a 1/2 cup of powdered sugar, 1/3 cup of graham cracker crumbs, 1/4 cup of cream. For my mint filling, I need about 3 to 4 cups of powdered sugar, 3/4 of a cup of sweetened condensed milk, 1/8 teaspoon of vanilla, 1 to 2 teaspoons of peppermint extract. Then for my cherry cordial chocolates, I'm going to use 3 to 4 cups of powdered sugar, 1 jar of maraschino cherries, 2 to 4 teaspoons of the maraschino cherry syrup, 1 to 2 tablespoons of kirsch, which is optional, and 1/4 cup of sweetened condensed milk. Now the tools you're going to need to make this and have on hand are a spatula, your chocolate molds, a cookie sheet, a straight edge to remove excess chocolate, dish towels that you can get dirty, and a ladle. And don't forget to have a digital thermometer, which is very important. Okay, so we're going to start with our peanut butter filling for our chocolates. So I've got a mixing bowl here, and I'm going to add to it 3/4 of a cup of peanut butter. I'm using all natural peanut butter, but you can use whatever kind you like. If you do use like one of those ones that's mixed with sugar, you may just want to, again, adjust the amount of sugar going into the filling because it can become overly sweet. All right, so 3/4 of a cup of natural peanut butter. I've got 1/2 cup of icing sugar and 1/3 cup of graham cracker crumbs. And literally, that is it. I'm going to give this a mix first just with my spatula, and then I'm going to move over to my hand mixer. I just don't want the powdered sugar to end up going everywhere at first. All right, so let's do that. We'll mix it with this. Okay, and at this point, we're going to add in a little bit of cream. So I'm going to start adding just about a tablespoon. That was more like 2 tablespoons of cream. We're going to mix that in. I'm going to give that a little scrape down. Okay, so I think that was a little bit more than a tablespoon. It looked like more close to a 1/4 cup. Came out a little faster than I was expecting. So let's mix that up now. So now at this point, give it a quick taste just so you can see if you need any more sugar or anything like that. To me, this is perfect. So that was about a 1/4 cup of cream we added. Now at this point, this is done. I'm going to stick this in a pastry bag and set it off to the side. Okay, so next up, we're going to make our peppermint filling. So for this, we're going to start with about 2 cups of powdered sugar. Like that, as I spill it on myself. Then we're going to add about 3/4 of a cup of sweetened condensed milk to that. And that's about right. Now we're going to add literally just a touch of vanilla. So like 1/8 of a teaspoon really. And now we're going to add our peppermint. So we're going to start with just a teaspoon of peppermint extract. Again, be careful with the extracts because you can always add more, but you can't take it out. If we want more flavoring, we'll taste it and we'll go from there. So now, for the peppermint filling, that's pretty much it. We're going to give this a mix. If I can find my spatula. Perfect. And we're just going to start mixing it by hand first because, again, powdered sugar, we don't need it to go everywhere. Give this a mix, and then I'll move over to my electric mixer. All right, so at this point, we'll give this a quick taste. I am definitely going to be adding some more sugar to it because it is a little runnier. I do want to add a touch more. So I'm probably just going to add about another 1/4 teaspoon to a 1/2 teaspoon. But again, this is to my taste. And I'm going to add in about another cup of icing sugar to this. And then I think it's going to be good. All right, so now we'll get this all mixed in. All right, I'm gonna add a little bit more condensed milk because I do want it a little bit runnier. You can make this into more of a dough consistency and basically make little patties out of it, but I'm gonna fill my chocolate, so I want it in a runnier consistency so I can kind of pipe it in. I think I'm almost there. I'm going to add a touch more without going too crazy. So another little drop. Now I'm going to give it a quick taste just to check for if I'm missing any more peppermint. And that to me is perfect. So I'm going to be able to pipe this. The mint flavor's there without going too crazy. So I'm going to put this one in a piping bag and set it off to the side. All right, and now finally we're going to move on to our filling for the cherry chocolates. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with about 2 cups of icing sugar. And again, I'm not measuring this right off the bat, but that's what we're going to start with. So 2 cups. Then I'm going to add to it about a teaspoon of corn syrup. Go. I'm going to add about a 1/4 cup of condensed milk. So this is just the remainder of the condensed milk that I had from the peppermints. So then we're using that all up. Just like that. Perfect. And because I'm using maraschino cherries in the chocolates themselves, I'm going to want to use a little bit of the juice. So I'm going to add in 2 teaspoons of maraschino cherry juice. And then to give it just a little bit of a kick, I'm going to add about a teaspoon to 2 teaspoons of kirsch. You can obviously omit this to your taste, but that's about 2 teaspoons. And that is it. So now I'm going to mix this up until I get the right consistency that I want. Okay, so at this point, now that it's mixed, I'm going to add about another cup of icing sugar. All right, so about there. And I'm going to add in about another teaspoon of the maraschino cherry juice. All right, so this is quite thick. So just to thin it out a bit, I'm just going to add a touch of cream to it. So that's probably about a tablespoon. All right. And at this point again, give it a taste to see if it's missing anything. I think it could use a touch more booze. So that's about another teaspoon. Mix that in there. All right, I'll give that another taste. That's perfect. I'm going to put this into a piping bag now, and then we'll get moving on to our chocolate. So one quick note I just wanted to tell you guys is about the chocolate and the chocolate that I'm using in this recipe. So I'm using the pure good chocolate. I splurged. So we're not using chocolate chips. We're not using chocolate melts. We're not using like chocolate bars. You want to make sure you're using this is a real Belgian chocolate pieces, or you can use like the baker's chocolate. Any of those other types of chocolate have already had some type of tempering, sugar added, the cocoa butter content isn't there, so tempering is not going to work as it will with this real chocolate. So definitely, like I say, if you're going to go this route and do the tempering, you want to make sure that you have the real chocolate. You do not have to temper. Again, that is just a choice that I make because I love having that nice shiny exterior and that snap of the chocolate. But you can totally go ahead and just melt it down normally and make your chocolates that way. You just won't have the same effect at the end like the professional way of doing things. So that's all I wanted to say about tempering your chocolate. All right, so now it's time to start our chocolate. So I've got a very wide brimmed metal bowl because I'm going to be using a double boiler, obviously. The reason I want a wide bowl for this is for 2 reasons. For one, when I lift it off of the pot, I'm not going to have a whole bunch of steam get in the bowl, which you don't want water touching chocolate. And second, when I do my molds, when I tip them over, it's going to make it a lot easier for the excess chocolate to fall in there rather than in a tight bowl. So to this, I'm going to add my dark chocolate. Now, I don't exactly know how much I'm going to need, but anything I don't use, I can literally save afterwards. So now we're going to move this to the double boiler and we'll melt this down. So I've got my pot of simmering water here, and again, my temperature is on a medium low because you want to melt this slowly. So I'm just going to add my bowl right on top. And this is going to take a little while to melt down. Okay, so we can see that my chocolate is starting to melt. So because we're going to temper this, you don't have to temper it if you don't want to. It is a bit of a task, but I enjoy doing it. So I'm going to melt this down until the thermometer reads that it's going to be 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Once it hits that temperature, then we're going to take it off the heat to cool it down. So when we get to that point, I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so my chocolate is not completely melted here, but it has reached about 115 degrees, and you don't want it to go over 120. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to remove this off of the heat just to let this cool down a little bit and continue melting. Okay, so my chocolate is off the heat. It's hit 116. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the second part of the tempering, which is the cooling down. So we're just going to keep this mixing, and it can take about up to like 15 minutes, depending on the bowl. But now we're going to cool this down to about 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Just a quick side note, I said we're going to let it cool down to 86 degrees. We're actually going to let it cool down to 84 degrees. I got a little confused. So just continue mixing the chocolate, let it cool down to 84 degrees. It can take some time, probably about 15 minutes, maybe 20, but don't rush it. It's just part of the process. Okay, so my chocolate has now hit 84 degrees Fahrenheit. So now what we're going to do is we want to bring it back up to a temperature anywhere between 89, 90, 91 degrees Fahrenheit. So to do this, you want to put it back over your double boiler for 5 to 10 second bursts, stirring it until you hit that temperature. The 89 to 91 degrees Fahrenheit is your sweet spot to when the chocolate has been back at proper temperature, and then we can add it to our molds. So we're going to do that 5 to 10 second bursts at a time till it hits that 89 to 91 degrees. I'm sorry I repeat myself so much, but it's important. Okay, so we're just going to put it back on the double boiler, and again, just count to yourself 5 to 10 second bursts, and we'll keep checking the temperature. But that's what we're going to do, and then when we hit that sweet spot of 89 to 91 degrees, then we can start using our molds, and I'll show you what that looks like. So my chocolate is looking great. It's nice and glossy. It's at the proper temperature. If the temperature as we're going falls too cold, all you do is pop it back on and heat it up till it hits that 89 to 91 degrees. But at this point now, we're good to start doing our molds. I've laid a, what you can call it? This is a kitchen towel. That's what it's called. I've laid this down just to protect my work surface. Chocolate is going to get a bit messy, so just be prepared for that. So I'm going to use this mold first. I'm using the polycarbonate ones. You can use the floppy silicone ones. I personally don't really like them, just due to the fact I find them really hard to get the excess chocolate out when we're doing our first coat. Okay, I've got a ladle, so we're going to use that. So I'm going to try to show this the best that I can. And I've also got my spatula here, which is what we're going to use to scrape off the excess. Okay. So let's see how much of a mess I can make. So I'm going to take my ladle, I'm going to fill it, and I'm going to literally fill my molds. Just like that. And you want to make sure each one of these molds gets filled. That's why I use the ladle. And this is why I find these polycarbonate molds a lot easier to use, because with the silicone, they just flop all over the place and they're harder to fill. All right, there we go. So everything is nice and full. So now what we can do is I can just scrape off the excess back into the bowl first and give these guys a nice little shake. Just gonna get off the excess just to prevent any air bubbles, and we're gonna make sure that everything in there is good, and then literally tip it out. This is why I've used the wide brim bowl. Makes this part a whole lot easier. Give it a shake, and you've got nicely filled molds. And again, just give this another scrape down and then put these guys off to the side and into the fridge to chill before we fill them. So now that the molds are filled, I put them just onto a baking tray like this, and I'm literally just gonna pop them in the fridge until they are hard and set before we fill them. So while your molds are cooling down in the fridge and you're waiting to fill them, you can literally pop your remaining chocolate back on the heat for about 5-10 seconds just to melt it down. It's gonna take a few minutes for it to kind of keep around that temperature anyway. And I think they're probably only going to be in the fridge for about 15 minutes. So just keep your chocolate at temper, and then we'll fill them and put the bottom coat on them. All right, so our shells have cooled. So it's been about 15 minutes and they've been in the fridge. So now we're going to fill these ones up. All right, so I'm going to start over here. So these ones I'm going to make my peppermint. So I have my filling all in a pastry bag. So make sure the big thing with this is you don't want to overfill them because you do need to have the chocolate coating on it as well. And I think I can make this a little bit bigger to make it easier. Oops. Apparently I'm struggling with scissors today too. Okay. That should be a lot better. Perfect. All right. So you want to make sure you leave enough room for a nice coating at the bottom. And I'm going to actually make this opening a little bit bigger. See if I can get it right on the third time. Perfect. So just go through and we're going to fill all these ones. Okay, so there's my peppermint. And I'm just going to pat down the top and anything that's kind of sticking out. Because when we top it with our chocolate and scrape it off, we don't want this to be popping through. Okay, and those are good. Perfect, okay. Next up, I'm going to do my peanut butter. Okay, oh, the peanut butter smells so good. Same thing. Just pipe it in there. All right. Same thing, just pat down anything sticking up. Okay, those look good. So now these ones I'm going to do my cherries. So I have my maraschino cherries here. The cherries were just a bit big, so I just cut the big ones in half. So we're going to place that inside of the mold. Okay, and then we'll add in our cherry filling that we made. Just to kind of fill up the gaps. Perfect. So these are looking great. And again, just pat down any excess. Okay, so at this point, we're just going to put the bottom layer of chocolate on here. So I've got my chocolate bowl back. And just like we did before, whoops, as this gets stuck. There we go. We'll just add on our bottom layer of chocolate like we did before, just cover it. And then we'll just scrape it off, and we'll do this for all of the molds. All right, so it's been a couple hours, the chocolates have set, so let's see if we can get them out of the mold. And look at that. They came out perfect. So these ones are... What were these ones? These were the peppermint ones. So there's one batch done. We'll see how the rest come out. Okay, these are my cherry ones. These are the ones I'm scared are not going to come out. So we'll see. All right. One good pound here. Okay, we got one. So that's a bonus. Whoop. Two. Okay, let's try that again. Oh, a couple more came out. Okay, not bad. I only had 2 break. So that's pretty good. And then last but not least, we have our peanut butter ones. Okay. First ones came out pretty good. Tempering looks fantastic on these. Okay. And just 2 more in here. Oh, 1 more. That came out really easy. Perfect. That's all our chocolates unmolded. Well, I hope you guys had a blast trying to make your own chocolates. Let me know how they worked out for you, if you had any issues with the instructions that I gave or anything that you learned along the way. I really love to hear your guys' experiences. And let me know of any like really unique kind of flavor combinations that you have. Again, mine today were pretty basic, but they're some of my favorites. So thank you again for joining me on the Noble Crumb. I will hopefully see all you guys soon. And as always, please like, subscribe, and comment. I really appreciate everything you guys are doing for me and supporting me along the way. Have a good day, guys. Bye.